Peace and blessings, peace and love. We want to welcome you to another Egyptian Adeptus Research Opening class, sponsored by our Moorish American government. Our host instructor today will be our National Assistant Grand Chief, Dr. Shadua Hedges, Section 1. Today's platform will be provided by the God of Law Georgia Consulate. I'm Dr. Torre Amirasi Simpson Bay, National Assistant Grand Chairman of Moorish America, National Assistant Sunday School Instructor, and Consul General of the God of Law Georgia Territory. We just welcome you, and we'll be starting shortly. Islam, Dr. Louis Potter Bay, Consul General, and Dr. Patah Ra'anpu, Auntie Ani Bati Bay. Islam. How we do, family?
All right, how you doing?
Oh man, we just more zealous working out this vehicle and getting ready to knock out this newsletter for the week. So all is well. What about yourself, Grand Man?
Hey man, I wanted to see, because I'm doing a website, and that's what I'm waiting to get this domain name, and I was gonna do it. That's what I was gonna do. It's like a Moorish news, but it does all news. Like,
okay,
we put everything in our perspective and not just what they say. Like, we looking at global issues, but you already doing it. You know what I'm saying? So Islamic.
Sound the beacons all over the territories.
So yeah, if you gonna put it, you gonna do it in the web format? Is it already in the web format?
Good.
You're fading in and out.
Hold on. Islam, can you all hear me?
Islam.
Okay, there you go. I was like you had cut out. So yeah, you were saying what you were saying now? We got a couple of minutes before we start.
Oh yeah, I was asking, is that an online newsletter?
Oh, as far as it's no, I just generated it. You know, like you build it. I just built it myself. Can I get out to Dr. Natalia Pope Bay? No, we actually generated it. We created it. You know, with sections, and pretty much that's how we did it. It's not online.
Oh,
just formed it.
Islam.
And what we put on there, what we place on there.
Peace and blessings, Morris.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Oh. Hold on, I know what's going on. Hold on, I think my AirPod's picking up. Hold on, let's see something here. Islam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I don't know why I sound like my earphones picking up. Oh well, but yeah, Dr. Bati Bay. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's not an online. It's just creating it, a newsletter. And like I said, you can, like I said, your ideas, the ideas that you have, global things that's dealing with globally and also nationally across the continental Americas. I mean, you created and you put it on there. That's how we did.
Islam.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, light those beacons across the territories, because people, everybody, believe it or not, everybody is starting to, man, I tell you. Well, I know in the God of Law Georgia Territory, people are recognizing. But it's a good thing. Islam. So let me see, Dr. Bati Bay, are you stationary? You want to do the open up with the commission at that prayer?
Islam.
Okay, Islam. All right, and then the chapter of the week, Council General. Dr. Louis Potter Bay, are you there? Council General, Nebraska. All right, with Dr. MATHENO'S Bay, would you read the chapter of the week?
Gratitude.
Islam. All right, well, we got a couple more minutes, family. Well, we want to welcome our Grand National Secretary of State, Dr. Sepsu Tutkama Bay. Islam, Goddess and Queen.
Islam, Goddess.
Morris, Ken.
Islam.
Glad to be here.
Islam.
Gratitude. Peace and love.
Peace and love. See, yeah, we got a couple more minutes. I was trying to see was Dr. Lewis part of Bay. Was he able to hear me? I see his, I see he's on the participation list. Or maybe he's working. All right. So we got a couple more minutes, family. So Islam, we want to welcome everyone to another Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate class. Our host instructor is Dr. Sadua Minty Al-Muhajjab Shual, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of Moorish America. We want to give honors to the God Allah Georgia Territory for providing the platform for today's ears class, Islam, and we'll be starting shortly. We'll be opening up the way with our commission at that prayer by Dr. Bati Bey, followed by myself with the Divine Constitution of Moorish America, and then followed up by Dr. Marvin Edwards Bey, Council General, who takes the territory with the reading of the chapter of the week, Islam. Islam, we have our host instructor, Sylvain number 4. Islam, grand man.
Islam.
Islam. Let's see here. We got one more minute. All right, Dr. Bati Bey. The floor is yours, grand man. Islam.
Islam. First, I'd like to rise and give all manner of praise to Allah, honors to the Prophet, honors to our theocratic government, our World Council, our flag, seal, emblem, our divine constitution, our swift angels, our muftis, our citizens alike, honors to our entire Act 1, honors to all the Moors here and there, our flag, seal, and emblem. And I'll begin with the ancient, the comedian at that Moorish American prayer. Islam. Ya Allah abnu haru makunetaru. Ya Allah abhet heru. Ya Allah ma'at heru. Ya Allah hotep heru. Ya Allah haru. Ya Allah ma'at heru kuti. Ya Allah awajeje juti. Ya Allah pertem sutek pertem haru. Ya Allah bamaduti. Al hedi sepsis reyab tu ali. Amin. Alisa, Alisa, Alisa. And that is to say, O Allah, the Father of the universe, O Allah, the Father of love, O Allah, the Spirit of truth, O Allah, the Spirit of freedom, O Allah, the Spirit of peace, O Allah, the Spirit of peace, O Allah, the Spirit of freedom, O Allah, the Spirit of justice, O Allah, you are my protector, O Allah, you are my God, O Allah, you are my salvation by night and by day, O Allah, through your holy prophet. Amen. O Allah, Drew Ali, Amen. Holisa, Holisa, Holisa. And with this, I will turn the meeting back over to Dr. Torrey Simpson Bay. Islam.
Islam. Islam, great man, and gratitude for the recitation of our commission at that Moorish American prayer. Islam, Moorish America. Dr. Torrey Anu Rasul Simpson Bay. Islam. Salvation, our God, unity. The divine constitution of Moorish America. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of Moorish America. The assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws, Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday, the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday, the first man departed out of flesh and ascended into his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws. And all citizens must obey the laws of the government. Because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and a parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, color folk, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a partial of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Prophet Noble Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, founder, father, and framer of the divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America. And now that this meeting has been opened, according to Act 2, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we say Islam, Islam, Islamism. And at this time, our chapter of the week, chapter 24, will be read by our Council General of Texas Territory, Dr. Marvin Edwards Beck. Islam.
Islam, Islam, Islam. I'm Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay out of the Texas Consulate, rising and giving all praise to the great God Allah, giving highest honor to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdullah. We give high honor to our theocratic government, our Moorish American government. We give high honor to Act 1. We give high honor to all of our officials. We give high honor to this class, our ears class, our Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate class, as well as I give honors to everything that's Moorish. Our flag, our seal, our emblem, our divine constitution, our holy Quran, our book of Aliyah, our 101, 102, the exhuman of a nation, all of our divine revelation. Give honor to the forerunner, Dr. Marcus Mosaic Ariel, as well as I give honor to our ancestors whose shoulders stand upon. I give honor to those that aided in bringing forth our class this morning, as well as give honor to the Georgia God Allah Consulate for the format, facilitating this class. And for all those that get a message before me and all that will get a message after me. And I'll begin. Yehoshua explains to Casper the meaning of silence and the wisdom of Allah in man. Now in the early morning, Yehoshua came again to teach and heal. A light not comprehended shone about as though some mighty spirit overshadowed him. A Magus noted this and asked him privately to tell from whence his wisdom came and what the meaning of the light, and what the meaning of the light. And Yehoshua said, there is a silence where the soul may meet its God Allah, and there the fount of wisdom is. And all who enter are immersed in light and filled with wisdom, love, and power. Magus said, tell me about this silence and this light that I may go and there abide. And Yehoshua said, the silence is not circumscribed. It is not a place closed in with walls or rocky steeps, nor guarded by swords of men. Men carry with them all the time the secret place where they may meet Allah. It matters not where men abide, on mountaintop, in the deep valley, in the marts of trade, or in a quiet home. They may at one time swing wide. Okay, I'll continue. Swing wide for the door of the soul and find the house of Allah. It is within the soul. It is within the soul. One may not be so much disturbed by noise of business and the words and thoughts of men if he goes all alone into the valley or the mountain pass. And when life's heavy load is pressing hard, it is far better to go out and seek a quiet place to pray and meditate. Silence is the kingdom of the soul, which is not seen by human eyes. When in silence, phantom forms may flit before the eye, before the mind, but they are all subservient to the will. The master soul may speak, and they are gone. If you would find this silence of the soul, you must yourself prepare the way. None but the pure in heart may enter. And you must lay aside all fears and doubts and troubled thoughts. Your human will must be absorbed by love divine. Then you will come into a consciousness of the holy breath. You are within a holy place, and you will see upon a living shrine the candle of Allah aflame. And when you see it burning there, look deep within the temple of your brain. You will see it all aglow. In every part, from head to foot, are candles all in place, just waiting to be lighted by the flaming torch of love. And when you see the candles all aflame, just look, and you will see with eyes of soul the waters of the fount of wisdom rushing on, and you may drink and there abide. And then the curtains part, and you are where the ark of Allah rests, whose covering is the mercy seat. Fear not to lift the sacred board. The tables of the law are in the ark, concealed. Take them and read them well, for they contain all the precepts that man will ever need. And in the ark, the magic wand, for they contain all prophecy, lies waiting for your hands. It is the key to all hidden meanings of the present, future, and past. The cherubim have guarded well for every soul this treasure box, and whosoever will may enter and find his own. Now Casper heard the Hebrew master speak, and he exclaimed, behold, the wisdom of Allah has come to men. And Yehoshua went his way, and in the sacred grove of Cyrus, where the multitudes were met, he taught and healed the sick. Islam.
Islam, and gratitude, Dr. MATHENO'S Bey, for reading the chapter of the week. And also gratitude to Dr. Bati Bey of the Council General of the Iowa Territory. And at this time, family, we're going to go forward to turn over the floor to our National Assistant Grand Chief, the host for this year's Adeptus Research Alternate class, Islam. Dr. Shadu Amenti Hedmo Dr. Shadu Amenti Hedmo Hedmo, are you there, Grandman? I think it's a lot.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me loud and clear, family?
I can hear you.
Okay, gratitude.
Right.
Islamism. Let us rise once again upon the seven and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet. Honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere. And therefore, honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything. And I do mean everything that our holy prophet brought to make us a nation. I want to welcome our Moorish kin to another year's research session. You know, in our grand drawing Moorish kin, we welcome you and we look forward to everything it is that our Moorish kin had to bring to the manifest. This is going to be a grand draw, and we already know. We actually had sent out the measure to our Moorish kin in relation to dealing with the homework. We apologize, as we see now that we will end up having to vet, you know, their special assignment when we send it out, because it seemed like they don't go when we sent them out the first time. So we had to re-forward that demonstration, you know, to our Moorish kin. Nevertheless, we have everything here in relation to dealing with what our subjects and the subject matter pertain to. We know our Moorish kin was able to demonstrate grand degrees of unfoldment in their research, you know. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open up and share my screen so our family can look at the assignment, you know, and let me do this here so that everybody is on the same page, those who have it, you know. Islam. So this was the email that we had sent out, you know, and it actually was dealing with, you see his original date was 4 days ago, but it states Islamism, Muslims, our homework will consist of becoming familiar with Medu through browsing the Egyptian hieroglyph metaphysical language by Mustafa Gadala, for detail concerning the meanings pertaining to symbols of your choice. In other words, when you go through the book of our brother Mustafa Gadala, if you have it, you will look at those meanings that are pertaining to particular symbols that you choose to find and what you choose to look at, and basically by becoming familiar with these measures, one actually study, what particular portion of creation it is one chose from that particular set of symbols that he put out there. And also we had number 2, this was supposed to be point 2 and then point 3, but nevertheless, browsing through Horopalo's hieroglyphics as well. And we sent the PDF of Horopalo out. There were actually 2 works dealing with the work of Horopalo. And to be honest with you, Mustafa Gadala is also drawing his concept from Horopalo as well. Also, this is the way that everybody viewed the way you read Medu in the metaphysical expression prior to, the 19th century, when the European began to come in and try to deal with Champollion's measures. Unbeknownst to many, Champollion even depended upon Horopalo's works. Not only Horopalo, but even Ibn Washi, his work. That was the Arab that actually dealt with the glyphs long before Champollion. For those who don't have knowledge, Dhul Nun also was said to have a knowledge, and Ibn Muslim, was also said to be one that had a knowledge of these things in the records of Islam before Champollion. So Champollion wasn't the first person to start dealing with these glyphs. But Horopalo was one of the first ones that actually had a great success in putting the measure out there showing you the symbolism of the language. So that's why we have his text in here. And this stuff is being quoted by Mustafa Gadala. Most of his works are from Horopalo's works. When you speak of the stanzas, and all the different breakdowns that he have, they basically coming from the same source. And then also you see a PDF in here as well that was comparing the Hebrew to the Egyptian, and Horopalo's works were being quoted in that as well. And there are more scholars out there, but my thing was to give our people something that was tangible and more direct and to the point in the actual document, so we can recognize what Horopalo was demonstrating and get an idea on the metaphysical interpretation. And his interpretation was his interpretation, but as masterminds, we can go in there and get a grander observation from it. And so this is what we're looking forward to seeing from our Moorish kin, what they had to say about these things. As we getting ready to bring this forth, as the prophet told us, by writing it with the pen as it is in our hand. You see, nothing against what already has been put out there, but we are specifically coming at this from a Moorish perspective. So anyway, we were to browse through Horopalo's hieroglyphs to get an idea of how Medu was seen prior to the 19th century Eurocentric Champollion and Rosetta Stone hoax. We know now, what was being demonstrated. We know that cryptography is what the European was demonstrating. Cryptography, again, as we established, has to do with a method by which you are able to encode a message. So it can only be known by those whom you have intent to send the message to. And so that's why they created all these different counter papyri, so to speak, that they like to call literary texts, written in pictures, and covering up the hieratic language. And they created that as cryptography. And it's also known as Ptolemaic hieroglyphics. There is a such thing as Ptolemaic hieroglyphics. And if you go and look at it, you will find that Ptolemaic hieroglyphics are the hieroglyphs that were created to basically come in and implement what took place after the time of Alexander the Greek, coming into Kemet. So in fact, what I'm gonna do, just to give our family a brief drawing on that right there. Here's a mentioning of this so that our family will have reference. You know, I thought I had coined this little phrase right here, you know, but in all actuality, you know, it is a real thing out there called Ptolemaic hieroglyphics. And this was coming from a PDF, just so happened to find, as you can see, it says, let me go back to the title, Visible Language, Inventions of Writing in the Ancient Modern East Beyond. Now look at what it says in the beginning here concerning Ptolemaic hieroglyphs. The designation Ptolemaic hieroglyphs is used by Egyptologists to refer to the script employed by the scribes of Egyptian temples after the conquest of Egypt by Alexander the Great until the end of the 2nd century AD, also called figurative or cryptographic hieroglyphs. You see? Now, they go on to say here, also called figurative or cryptographic hieroglyphs, they are not only synonymous with extreme complication, obscure puns, and strange puzzles. They talk about Ptolemaic hieroglyphs, right? It says, but also with intense challenge and incitement. Their figurative nature misled early scholars to regarding the hieroglyphic script as purely symbolic. So they're trying to tell you here that the figurative nature misled people like Horapollo. You know, this is a European again trying to justify, you know, why they was able to remix up. And they don't want you to know that this thing was originally really purely symbolic. They want you to keep thinking of the hieroglyphs in the term of alphabets, and we know better. You know, we know better because we done exposed that the original papyri, there is no original papyri that's showing hieroglyphs. The original papyri is showing hieratic. The hieroglyphs, you know, are the papyri that were created later. We showed this, so we don't have to go into that. But what we will emphasize is the definition of this word, because this is very important. When you say cryptographic hieroglyphs, what is that? What is a cryptographic hieroglyph? It's another thing to hide things. I'm gonna show you. See what it means right here when you say cryptography? Again, it means it provides for a secure communication in the presence of malicious third parties, right? This is what they do in the computer world. If somebody want to hide a document, they encrypt the document, and you won't know what's in it. You have to get it and get the code to encrypt it. And when you deal with, well, the code encryption, once you decode the encryption, now you can see it in its form. You see, but other than that, it becomes encrypted. You see, I had a situation in the past where I was creating a document in Word, and all of a sudden it was encrypted by the computer, and I couldn't even find the meaning. Well, not the meaning, I couldn't even find my own document because they had encrypted my document, you know, years ago, and I couldn't even take the encryption off of it. You know, it was put in encryption form. You know, but this was during the time when I didn't know too much about the internet, you know, and I still actually have some of those encryptions because thinking that I can get a certain thing, a word that'll reconvert it, but I had never found one to reconvert all that work that I was doing. But nevertheless, cryptography is used for that purpose, to hide something. You see? Now let us look up the definition of the word, you know, cryptography. You see right here in one definition they have, right? But this is going to give you the grand drawing, and you're going to see what I mean when I say they hid. Hold up. You're going to see what I mean when I say that they hid the symbols, as we always say, the symbols of writing under the pictorial glyphs. This is it right here. Look at what it tell you. It tell you the sole intent. Cryptography is the study of secure communication techniques that allow only the sender, an intended recipient of a message, to view its contents. The term is derived from the Greek word kryptos, which means hidden. So in other words, this is where one, when they, for example, when I show you the original hieratic papyri. And then I show you, what was recreated with pictures, to replace the language. They encrypted basically the hieratic papyri in the language of the symbols that they created. And this is what they have been teaching to the masses is Medu. You see what I'm saying? We are proving this countless times over and over again by showing our family the different hieratic papyri next to the European remix. If you notice, the European remix is never seen in pictorial glyphs. Every one of them papyri were written in hieratic. So that's a dead giveaway. So that's what Ptolemaic hieroglyphs demonstrate. And the Ptolemaic hieroglyphs come up because remember, some of these things come into existence, the signs they created after the Old Kingdom, after the Middle Kingdom. Let me show you, for example, let me reshare my screen and I'm gonna show you, for example, and we opening up the floor for the homework of our Moorish kin. We gotta keep bringing this measure to the manifest though, to let you know what's going on so our people won't be distracted by keep thinking. And I just exposed the brother on Sarnetta, a few days ago. And when I put the hieratic papyri up there in front of him, because he got up there trying to challenge me on us teaching the Moorish teachings. And I asked him, well, read this, Brother Reggie. And he said, I can't read that. So how you gonna get out here scamming our people? Talking about you teaching them Kemet, and you're not able to show them the actual source. So let me do this right here. Let's see. Let's see what happened here when we go into the demonstration. Look at this. Now notice they put the picture up here, right? But guess what it is? What did I tell you the name of the Egyptian language? The herein KEMET. They have R-E-N, they got it up here without the vowels. And they're banking this off of this here, which is not the original text. See, that's the encryption right there. That's the cryptography they demonstrate. Now, let me show you when it goes into the actual language. Watch what they do. You see this? They put up the papyri of Ebers, right? This is actually the same one that I have. This is real. And this is a real clean copy right here too. I like this. It's a lot of copies out here. This is real papyri here. You don't see no pictography in papyri like this. When you see the pictography, it's something that was recreated from this. You know what I mean? You can see all the alphabets there. The letter M, you can see it it's all up there. And man, it's just all up. You can look at it. It's plain and clear. You can even see, the indicators that were put in here that are not actual measures of alphabet, but more like punctuations. I can look at them and point them out. We know that's not an alphabet right there. So we know that's got to be an indicator. And most of the time, these indicators are separating, points, or like I say, dealing with what punctuation marks would be. That's an indicator right there. I can look at it and tell, I know that's not an alphabet. By knowing what the alphabets are, that's not an alphabet. So that's an indicator right there. We can go on and on. That's not an alphabet. That's an indicator as well. This is a bilateral demonstration right here. I can see it. This is a bilateral demonstration here. I'm looking at it and I can pick it out and see it because now my eyes trained to be able to see that. But this is what we call actual herein KEMET. Just like they put it up here, but the only difference is they're still trying to use pictures to talk about it. You see? Now, these particular texts that they are dealing with, the Egyptian language, because remember, I told you people use the term Medu, and we can really go with a blanket, term and say, okay, Medu represent all the language in Kemet. But we specifically using the term Medu for the pictorial expressions and they are meant to be understood metaphysically. We also seen what I just showed you is not cursive hieroglyphs, because a lot of people like to call cursive hieroglyphs the herein, KEMET, or hieratic, but that's not the case. So notice it says the Egyptian language or ancient Egyptian, herein, KEMET. Don't pay no attention to the symbols. We just exposed that this is cryptography. You see? And now notice they saying it is an extinct Afro-Asiatic language. How? When it's still being used now. You see what I'm saying? And we showed you this too. Like when you look at this here, they talking about dead language. We showed you this same type of alphabet here in our last class when we were showing you the script of the Iberian Peninsula and also Egyptian. You see? Look at this here. When you put it up, hover over Middle Egyptian, you see what pop up? You know what I mean? So people just got to do their research, you know, and they'll get it, you know. So nevertheless, there it is right there. That's a picture of cursive hieroglyphs, which look way different than what I just showed you. And cursive hieroglyphs is the same thing as basically hieroglyphs. Is just more of, again, a stick form of writing. Notice this is the papyri of Ani. You see, we gave a measure recently where we were showing our brother Muta Ashby, where he was showing the creation story of the Inunian theurgy, as he called it. And he showed a hieratic papyrus dealing with the original creation story. That's a whole nother measure. Nevertheless, we showing that these things came forth, you know, first in the form of the actual breakdown, and all that other stuff they laid later, they put in the form of these signs and symbols. So we also have to know the temples that these things come from, because some of these things we looking at thinking is ancient Egypt, but these are Ptolemaic temples that were built in Egypt. So I just wanted to say that for that particular portion. And there was another point that we had here that we made. We also asked our family to use Allen Gardenia's sign list to pinpoint symbols you recognize by observing nature and all life forms around you, and then give a metaphysical exegesis for what you observe. And so you were basically using Gardenia's list to pick out something it was that caught your eye. And then when you see the thing, you know, you observe the nature of that special thing, you know, around you. You know, it may be going outside looking at a particular type of bird, a particular type of animal, vegetation, whatever you're looking at, that you was able to find and give your metaphysical interpretation of that. You see, that's what we were doing. So this is what trains our minds to be able to become more metaphysical in the outlook when it comes to dealing with the symbols. Prime example, we look at this expression here, you know, and there's a metaphysical expression here being demonstrated. You know, I mean, just in the aspect, this is simply saying these letters are Meroitic. I use Meroitic letters to do this, you know, but
Islam, are you showing us something?
okay, let me share it because I know it'll do that to me. Thank you, Brother Marvin Edwards, man. Okay, right here. This is what I was showing our family, the ears logo actually. And so what we have here, the Meroitic script that we have here just said the same thing that we have in English, Egyptian Adeptus Research Center. So basically, you can look at this, you know, more like just a drawing showing you each letter. Well, I'm applying each letter to the Meroitic letter, basically. You know, so now if I didn't have this wrote out, you wouldn't know what that was outside of me telling you what it is. You see what I'm saying? And that's basically similar to what, you know, like up here, say you rather be one than see one. You know, that's what this right here basically saying, you know, up in this particular area here, you see? And when you go into the actual symbolism, you know, we have the symbol of the owl, we have the symbol of the lion, the symbol of the ox head, we have the symbol of man. If we pay attention, we are really looking at a drawing of the Elohim concept. You see what I'm saying? That's all we put up here. You see? We have a symbol of the Elohim put up here. We use the bird here in place, you know, of what is known as the ego in certain states. And if we draw off the measure of dealing with the concept of the owl, it makes you think about Olam, which deals with, so that's Lam, the way we put it there. Eagle, lion, ox, and man. Ain't got nothing to do with the alphabet. You know, this is expressing what they are. And so instead of that, it's owl, lion, ox, and man. And so when we take the letter from each one of the beginning of those names, doesn't make these alphabets, it goes into O, L, and then O for ox, and then man again. You see, this was just my, you know, metaphysical breakdown. But Olam actually means knowledge. You see, this is where in Arabic they get the concept ulama or ulama from, you know, the council of, you know, Islamic knowledge, or, you know, also the Alameen, the ulama of the heavens that were there with the great God Allah, you know, when he began to bring forth his throne of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in creation. You know, this is also the root from whence the word alchemy derives from. You know, see, it's a lot of breakdown I can give just on that word alone. But who else knows that but me until I just brought it to the Moorish king? So then you can see up here, we have the eye, which is known as the wajet. You know, in the wajet, we already know this is really dealing with spiritual insight, you know, which is known as the eye heru, the eye ra. And that's why it's the most elevated measure. You know, we talk about the providence of Allah, you know, being over all his works. You see, when we deal with the government of the world and so forth and so on, us conforming to the will, you see the rays coming down, representing the universal teachings, the hand being symbolic to the masterminds that have reached down from on high. Wisdom speaker out of highest plane of spirit life, you know, to lift us up, basically. You know, we already know the symbolism behind that, you know, and going into the aspect of scimitar, we know it represents consciousness, you know, our love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We see here the wings of an angel, you see, in KEMET colors, because these are most of the colors that you will find in the monuments of ancient Kemet, you see. But nevertheless, you see it with the wings getting ready to thrust, you know, itself up. You can even see the seed being cradled here in the crescent, or coming out of the crescent, you know, as the same heru bird, you know, that unfolds, right? But then within that, you see Safek Pekaru wrote there, which means really, you know, Hierophant. It really means circle 7. You know, this is actually synonymous with the name that was given to, you know, even Yusuf, you know, when he was actually made a living pharaoh, you know, by the pharaoh that was there. He was given the name Zephaneh-Paneth, and it's synonymous with this same name here, which is actually the 7th adept degree. You see? So you see the 7 here in the form of the sun on the manifest. And I blow this up, you can also see the 7 in between each one of these knots right here. You know, that's the golden cord of love. 7, 7, and 7. These can also refer to the arets, because it's 7 arets, but they have the watches and they have the doorkeepers. This is synonymous with one being able to go up through 7 stages of self-mastery, but every level of the heavens, like Muhammad had to meet a prophet at every level, they're also gatekeepers or doors to be open. And that's why the angel Jibril would come forth to a particular heaven and say, I'm here with Muhammad to come through this particular gate, when he was taking Muhammad through his initiation degrees. But at the highest level, the 7th level, he showed him Kemet, basically. He showed him the Nile Valley civilization, the lote tree of the utmost boundary. It called the lotus. This is where you get in the 1,000-petal lotus. You talking about the crown chakra. You know, that's a universal teaching. I'm showing how the 7 is there. And that's what I was basically teaching about, you know, to them brothers and sisters, showing them how our teachings are linked to Kemet. And they love the measure we brought, and one tried to come and dampen it, but you can't dampen the truth, because the truth is the only thing that changes not. So also you see it says commission, adept, hierophant. And this is what all of us are when it comes to this measure. You know, go into the book of fire. You know, the chairman tell you exactly the science on how the prophet himself became the one to bring these degrees back to us, you know, and teach us about the adept deification of man, you know, and so forth and so on. So you also see here what we call the ancient Kemetic order, which is mentioned in the book of fire. You know, the key of life and the symbol of the triune expression, wisdom, will, and love. You know, we also know in our document that we have known as the Egyptian Adept Rite of Self-Initiation, there's questions that are asked in regards to dealing with the mystic pyramid. You know, where's the prophet? And he said to be at the peak, you know, and it's all saw and all set as well. You know, where are they? They at the first and the second point, you see? And so we can go into all these different and special measures, you know, but the prophet is at the peak, you know, according to our particular rite, ceremony, and form. So this as a whole is the expression of the swift angel seal, you know. And so when we go into that special aspect, that's just giving ones a rundown, you know, on these special just a, you know, a general breakdown of the symbols. But other than that, somebody will just look at it as a symbol and what it's saying, but they don't know that all that science is behind the explanation of these things. You see what I'm saying? It's all an expression of the higher self. That's all it is. And also, if you really notice, I use this drawing too to bring this to the expression of actually being a pyramid and us looking at it from on high, you know, and that's why it's coming up, you know, in the way that it is. So that's a whole nother drawing, but praise be to Allah, you know, Islam. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop sharing, you know, and we just mentioned our homework, and now we can call our family for, and these are all the documents we have here that was sent out. So they were used so our Moorish king can bring their measure forth. So let me stop sharing this demonstration here. And what we gonna do, you know, and call forth our Moorish king so that we can get the homework from our family. You know, and that was, we stirred up the ethers now and gave one time to get it together, a little more time. So who is it that would like to come forth and bring the grand drawing, their Moorish perspectives, you know, and give us some of this God power that y'all done been able to demonstrate over here? Let me see. I don't see nobody with their hand up yet. All right now. Anybody would like to come forth with their measure and their research? We got our Moorish kids standing that way. Well, we know our granddad secretary of the state, she ain't scared at all. Islam, goddess and queen.
Islam, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, Islamism, loud and clear with divine ears.
Islam, Islam, Islam. First of all, I'm going to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet Noble Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Georgia Consulate for providing the forum, to Consul General of Iowa, Dr. Bati Bey, for opening our meeting according to law, along with our National Assistant Grand Chairman, Dr. Torrey and New Rasul Simpson Bay for Divine Constitution and Bylaws, and also to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for reading our subject chapter for the week. Giving honor to Act 1, giving honor to our forum from the Georgia Consulate, and also to you, Dr. Shahi, our National Assistant Grand Sheik of Moorish America, and to all of my Moorish kin. I'm going to share my screen. And basically, dealing with our assignment. This was the assignment that our National Assistant Grand Sheik just brought forth as far as browsing the Egyptian hieroglyph metaphysical language by Mustafa Gondola for detail concerning the meanings pertaining to symbols of your choice. And that book was very much on point. It definitely was very thorough. Browse through Hierapolis hieroglyphics to get an idea of how Medu was seen prior to the 19th century Eurocentric Champollion Rosetta Stone hoax. Use Alan Gardinia's sign list to pinpoint symbols you recognize by observing nature and all life forms around you, then give a metaphysical exegesis for what you observe. All right. The meanings of symbol. I took the hair. This is coming from Mustafa Gondola's book, The Egyptian Hieroglyph Metaphysical Language. The hare's eyes always remain open, symbolic of ever open, watchful, divine eyes. The long ears of the hare represent divine hearing and listening, and that indeed made sense. And then now what I also saw was the stillness of the rabbit, because we have rabbits all the time and they just sit there and pose, you know, just automatically get still if they see that there's possibly something that might attack or what have you. So I also included stillness to be able to hear the still small voice of the creator at the ready at any signs of danger. And I also put down their lower self, because this is what we're supposed to be demonstrating as well. So that was my metaphysical take, in addition to what the author Mustafa Gondola put. For man's depiction signifies the universe. And this, I was using the man in yellow. This is, again, based on Mustafa Gondola's. Man is made in the image of God. He represents both the universe as a whole and the human being on earth. So again, I went back to what that meant to me. It just had me look at as above, so below, as within, so within. We can also see the relationship between macrocosm and microcosm. We have the universe within us, and we are part of creation. So, you know, I often speak about in a universal order of things, which lets us know that everything is part of the oneness of the creator, our Father God Allah. So, keeping in mind the divinity of the self, the God state, spirit man, is coming out of chapter 1. Next slide, dealing with the horse, coming from Mustafa Gondola's book. The horse symbolizes fortitude and confidence. It is the hieroglyphic symbol for noble. That I didn't even have a clue, you know. Symbolic of driving force when directed correctly leads to nobility. Exceptional people are knighted by the monarch, which is another term for king. My interpretation, passing all tests, leading to self-mastery. The monarch is noble Ali with a hierophant within. Other attributes, they have the charging and defeating forces of chaos or foreigners. And I was reflecting on how to brought preferring a stranger to thy own blood or the God of Europe. And also they were speaking about defeating forces of chaos, dealing with wild animals. I looked at that as being a beast, you know, that we can allow, dealing with that lower nature. Battle between higher self and lower self, find God, go within, the name is self. horsepower or measure of energy. And then the horse is also associated with the tongue, the driving force to control your destiny. So, you know, the prophet spoke about that tongue, that red piece of flannel, you know, and how you can create a condition that you are not able to control or what have you. So it was really awe-inspiring just to look at the horses being associated with the tongue. And, you know, you can use it either for art or for not. Dealing with Apollo. It's actually the Greek version, you know, dealing with Horus and Apollo. They merged those two terms, and they called it the author of a treatise called Hieroglyphica, or Egyptian hieroglyphs. They also stated that Apollo was one of the last leaders of the Egyptian priesthood at a school, Menuthis, near Alexandria during the reign of Zeno, and it gives AD 474 to 491. And of course, you know, the story went further, but it just shows the remix of what Rome did. But this is coming from, he's Kemethian. Looking at Apollo again, you can see, even though they termed it Horus, Horus is recorded in Egyptian hieroglyphs as HRW, dealing with the falcon. Additional meanings are thought to have been the distant one, or one who is above or over. Horus, now this is a term, Horus is what Greek terminology is. The actual term coming out of Kemet, Haru, Hor, Har, okay? And you can see the symbol dealing with the eye of Horus, which our National Assistant Grand Sheik also brought forth, and dealing with the symbol for the ears class, and the Greek equivalent being Apollo. He was most often depicted as a falcon, or a man with a falcon head. Going further, the falcon, so of course that led me to pull out the falcon as far as one of the meanings. It indicates universal solar principle, the sun, for its fiery and destructive nature. It also indicates God. Falcon means swiftness, to all swift things and to everything to which swiftness is appropriate. So that, again, when we're looking at reading the papyri and determining what to use, you have to look at, does it fit with the meaning in reference to the what's going on with the papyrus? Since Horus was said to be the sky, he was considered to also contain the sun and the moon. Kemethians believed that the sun was his right eye and the moon his left eye, and they traversed the sky when he, the falcon, flew across it. The again, this goes into the eye of Horus, which again our National Assistant Grand Sheik spoke about. Wajet, who later became associated with Bastet, Mut, and Hathor, solar deity again, intended to protect the king in the afterlife, to ward off evil. You know, and again, when I look at the third eye, where you're able to discern truth and falsehood, that was indeed a blessing, and didn't know that they would use that same symbol when they circumnavigated the earth to ensure safe travel. Okay, now this is coming from the signs. This is number 3, seated man. And you see here what Gardenia's seated man was. He's going into man, or man's relationships or occupations. He also courtier, wretch, personal names he has down here, Anku. Now for me, this reminds me of giving honor to the creator, because the hands are, you know, outstretched or pointing upwards, giving honor to the God within, striving on the path of divinity. And Anku, to me, circle of life or consciousness. That was my metaphysical demonstration. Here in Gardenia's list, he's got king, he's got Lord, Majesty, me, or he's got other hieroglyphs down here when the king is speaking. From my metaphysical perspective, symbol of nobility, self-mastery, lessons learned, fruition, solving the fixed, unfoldment, and the great God, because we know that we are spirit and a part of the great God Allah. When I looked at the eye, gardenia, he's got eye, he's got milk, make, whence, blind, to weep, be wakeful. And for my metaphysical of dealing with the eye, discernment, consciousness can be either the eye that's blinded, when we have a veil over our eyes, symbolic of vanity, ego, or the eye of soul, symbolic of intuition, telepathy, third eye, and clarity. The breast, I combined both of these. It had two different symbols for breast. Now gardenia goes into to suckle or breast or to tutor, transferred from the word nurse. My metaphysical definition, breast, symbolic of mother of virtues and the harmonies of life, compassion, because we know that that's what mother is. Also coming from the attributes of Allah, to nurture, to give life to, the first teacher, to uplift, to build, divine guidance, the first principle of love divine, protection. These are also attributes of our creator, free from disease. And the reason I said that was because we know that the first milk is colostrum, usually for the first couple of days that the infant gets before the actual milk comes in. That helps protect infants from disease. So I just accumulated all that in that term of breast. Now, this gardenia symbol, D54 of legs walking. He has come, looks like detached movement, go, approach, hasten, lack of movement. He has walk, step. And for me, my metaphysical definition was legs walking, progress, to move forward, being active, as the prophet speaks about being active and not passive. Divine journey, because often when you're dealing with that second step of faith, that which man knows is truth, you're often walking on a path that you may not know where the next steps are leading, even though one's destiny is assured. Divine path to make a stand. Firmness, that's coming out of caveat emptor, where mores are upright, independent. Faith, that which man knows is truth. To follow the prophet to a destiny that is not uncertain nor unknown. And then the last one, basically, was just capping in reference to exegesis, digging into the text to pull out the meaning, which is what we have been assigned to do. And that metaphysical, as man unfolds, as God unfolds, which is, for me, the whole point of going into these lessons. And as the prophet was speaking about being able to repeat itself, because we see ourselves as we measure self unfolding in these lessons. So gratitude more for calling me forth. Peace and love.
Man, oh man. Man, that's what I'm talking about. You see what I'm talking about? It's already in us to be what's in us. Grand National Secretary of the State. Y'all got to take notes now. You see? And this is what I'm talking about right here. See, that's when the student, become the teacher. Because I'm the student right now, listening to that grand drawing. And that's what we talking about, because that's the same way that we will bring. She already done brought some definition on the manifest with our dictionary. So now imagine when you start to transliterate, taking them same terms back into the hieratic, using the hieratic words that would go along with what the Grand National Secretary of the State brought forth. And then we bring forth our transliterations on the text based upon those definitions. See, that's how you bring the Moorish drawing on the manifest. You see? And so it ain't gonna take long with us working together doing just what our Grand National Secretary of the State did. If you got Moors demonstrating like that and they bringing 7 measures together, we building up, just saying we building on the alphabet A, so to speak. And we just going through them. That's what we talking about. But notice we have a metaphysical understanding. And these are things that the people can bear witness to all around them. We like the measure, especially when you brought it forth and showed us out of the sign list. And you had actually put the measure up there in the pictorial form, where you had the brother sitting down then with his hands up as well there. And then you had the sister behind it. That was a powerful expression. I know that was Remet too. That is actually a grand expression. Also, it's also expression for Asiatics as well. We know that. But God man and God woman on the manifest is almost like man being a protector of his family through the divine will. You see, and the God woman right there supporting him. You know what I mean? That was a powerful expression there too. And it can go the other way as well. It could be a sister demonstrating that same science, and that is actually a mudra. You see, these are what in normal cases they would call these yogic or yoga poses. You see what I'm saying? Some would say sun salutations, which has to do with dealing with the light within. And so it's a lot of science that you brought forth, Grand National Secretary of the State, and you most definitely studied these things. I like the measure dealing with the rabbit. A lot of people don't know, our young brothers, that in these different street organizations, they have certain cryptic alphabet, and they actually adopted a lot of symbols out of KEMET. But they don't know that's where they come from directly. But a lot of them symbols come straight from the same place. So we know the world of symbols has always been a way of communicating, which is the same reason you have people like even, these different people that done stole from our ancestors, like the Masons and the Shriners. All the symbols they have, they try to teach those symbols in allegory, but who was teaching these things first? They come from KEMET. You see? And so everything comes from KEMET. And that's what we were trying to show our family, the Kemetic roots, when we were demonstrating on the brother Sarnetta's platform, which he loved, he honored that. But and the masses did. So the drawing is giving a universal exegesis and being able to read the book of creation. Our Grand National Secretary of the State just translated, some ayats or signs, so to speak, from the book of creation. Though she had the works of Mustafa Gadala and Horapollo, her work, her independent work she did and brought forth most plainly. You see, it don't get no plainer than that right there. And that's what we're saying. When you read, Medu, you got to listen to that silent voice of God that speaks within. Because now you are no longer looking at creation as something that you take for granted. You look at creation and you can see a revelation coming up out of that. And that's the importance of understanding metaphysics and Medu, because you don't look at it as just as some picture and try to limit it to the realm of, what a language is demonstrating to us, because we already know languages convey messages. But when you get into the metaphysics, this goes deeper than what Rome trying to say that untranslated. So you get manifold revelations out of looking at these symbols, as opposed to going off what E. Wallace Bud said was, this person said it was. And even Alan Gardenia, you can see the way that he was demonstrating what they have in his list, his sign list. That's how they should have really been demonstrating and understanding the whole language of KEMET. You see, but no, they want to choose a few up out of it and say, oh, we're going to make 28 of them or 24 of them some alphabets. And that's where they ended up misguiding the people. But during the time, again, coming from Horapollo, way before Champollion, even come on the manifest, they was always being read metaphysically. And this was even from the doctrines of Pope Clement of Alexandria that our brother Mustafa Ghazala often speak on. We sent that document out there. Dealing with it was wrote in so-called Greek, but nevertheless, it tells you that they viewed the fact that we were dealing with allegories, metaphors, and symbolic speech. It was only after the time that they so-called come up with the Ptolemaic hieroglyphs, and all this stuff with Champollion, and then they start trying to make this stuff into an alphabet. You know, so gratitude, Grand National Secretary of the State. Powerful measure, beautiful. And Moors, we definitely got to take notes. We got to take notes from that demonstration there. All right. Is there any other Moor that would like to bring forth their homework assignment? If that don't stir up the ethers, I don't know what will. Islam, Sister Curta Bay. All right now. We know y'all working together.
Islam, Islam, Islam. That didn't the occur to me. Let me get my hand back down. Okay, first let me rise and give praises to the great God Allah. I give honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honors to One. I give honors to all my government officials, and I give honors to you, National Assistant Grand Chief, for this wonderful, wonderful class this morning. And the goddess, I tell you, she just knocked it out of the park. And I'm not gonna try to do I'm not gonna try to do like her. But she really put her foot in it. But what I did, and I'm not I'm still working and trying to learn this computer. I don't have any PowerPoints for you this morning, but I did want to let you know I did read. I read I got hung up in trying to read the attachments that you had sent out, and and when you said about the assignment, I wasn't quite sure that I was doing it right. But what I did is I looked at your first attachment, the one where says a comparison of the Egyptian symbols with those of the Hebrews. In the first one, in chapter 11, it talks about the bee. And it says the bee was the symbol of an obedient people because says Harapolo, it alone of all animals had a king. And it say Champollion gives to the bee the significant a king of an obedient people also. And what I did is when you said to browse through them, I did go down through them and just looked at all the symbols, like the goddess had the hair, and I saw the ant in there, and I looked at all of them, and I was trying to read some of them. Of course, I was trying to read the reading before that, because a lot of information being there. And but when I saw the ant, I did look. I looked up the ant, and I went back. I went back and I thought about how we talked about the ant in the Bible and in the Piscean area. And I want to read that to you. It says, because you were saying, give our exegesis of, give our interpretation about the ant and stuff. And I remember about talking about the ant in the Piscean area, and it says in Proverbs 6, Proverbs 6 and 6, it says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. And I thought about that, and I said that's symbolic of the ant. He's telling us to consider how the ant do. In other words, like we always say in our government, it's plenty of work to do. That ant is busy doing what he is called to do. He stay in his lane. He do what he's supposed to do. And I read about the ant and how it talked about how when it goes out and get the food or whatever it's going, it know exactly where to go back to. And I thought about how even in our teachings, how the great God Allah, he's my protector, he's my guide. He's guiding them ants, and just like he guides us. So that's what I took away from that. And then I went on and I went on down and I started looking at. I did a comparison of the which one I had. I did the ant, and I did, yeah, I talked about the bee, and then I also thought about the beaver. I remember talking about the beaver, and the beaver is mentioned in the Bible a lot of times too. And the beaver is symbolic of a guardian angel, because he's always getting everything together. And then what I found out about the beaver when I looked him up, it says the beaver among the largest living rodent in the world. They have the thick fur, webbed feet, and flattened scale-covered tail with powerful jaws and strong teeth. They fell trees in order to build homes and dams, often changing their environment in ways few other animals can do. And when I thought, when I read about the beaver, and I thought about how symbolic that is to us, because it changes its environment. Well, and I thought about us as being gods and goddesses. I say, okay, I'm a god, I'm a El, and I'm a Bay, I'm a creator. And then I have to govern that, what I create. So I'm like the beaver. I can change my environment. If I got something going on in my environment, then I got the ability to change it. Why? Because now that I know who made me, the great God Allah, I'm a seed of the great God Allah. So now that I know, I can change my environment and change it to what I want it to be. And then govern that what I have created. So that little old beaver just stood out to me, how he can change his environment. He changed his environment, you know, for him and his family and his you know, all the other beavers and stuff. But they that's what they do. They build dams and stuff and fix it for suitable for them. And what else did I have? That's about all. And like I said, I got hung up on still studying a lot of the reading and stuff. And like I said, I'll be so slow with that with that computer. I wanted to have y'all some pictures of the ant and the beaver and the bee, but I just didn't get around to getting that part. But I said, well, I'm gonna let him know I did. I was studying. I was reading and studying and just going through these different things and picking out, like you say, just looking around me and just getting a drawing from the environment around me and giving my measures on that. So gratitude, God, man, for letting me share. That's what I have. And Islam, peace and love.
Islamism, and that was picture perfect, Sister Curta Bay, because I could see everything that you were saying without even seeing a slide, you know. And so that's a powerful measure, you know, and that's what we're talking about. So the most important aspect of the Medu is being able to, our ancestors recorded history, you know, and engraved it in stone, basically, you know, and gave us the key to understanding how we become masters. In other words, they was able to become the master builders that they are, you know, that they was and evermore shall be, because they were observers of nature. They listened to the silent voice that speak within. They had respect and they revered everything. Some of the things that they put in the Medu, you know, we squash and kill and, you know, all types of things, you know what I mean? But they revered creation so much, they were so in tune with it, to where they was able to bring a divine degree to the manifest. And just briefly, and share my screen, I'm gonna show you something, because I actually started on something, but I didn't really finish the whole measure of it. And I was trying to give ones the example of when you go into the Grand Quran, for example, right? There are different chapters there. And if you notice in these chapters, if you look, each of them have, like the Fatiha is called the opener. You got the Bakra, you know, the cow, the family of Imran, the women, the table, the Catahites. All of these are dealing with things that are expressions of living life. So if you were to take all of these different definitions, you know, that you have here and put them in a pictorial form based on the definitions of each one of these surahs, the 114 surahs, you actually will see basically Medu. See the B right there in Surah 16? See the rock, the thunder, the cave, all of these things like the prophets, and you can put that in the category of the sign list that deal with the human beings.
Islam.
If you were dealing with a gardenia sign list, so to speak. And this just goes on and on, family, for 14 surahs. The council, the ornaments of gold, the smoke. Imagine putting all of this in the form of inscribing these titles in rock. You see, you have also here in this particular portion, the chambers, the winds, the sand hills, kneeling, which is one of the measures that we seen the Grand National Secretary demonstrate with the brother kneeling in the posure, him and the sister, the star, the moon, the beneficent, the event, the iron, the dispute, the gathering, the congregation, the hypocrites, all these things, ascending stairwells. We see all these things. I see Kemetic expressions for each and every one of these different statements that are here. And I actually started, and let me show you here. I think I should be sharing the whole of my screen. You see that, Morris Ken, what I just put here? When I just changed the screen?
Islam.
So what I did, I dealt with the first 7 surahs because I actually had plans to go and do all of it. And we went over this a while back with our Morris Ken, but now where we are now, it'll probably be more clearer. So I broke this down and I say, well, the Kemetic exegesis of the first 7 surahs, which I broke down into Sarah, the Kemetic word Sarah, Sa dealing with the sun, and Ra dealing with the light. In other words, the divine sun, that is coming from the truth of the grand Ka, Ra, and Ani. And those who know that Ka is another way of actually speaking of the spiritual soul. Ra is the light within the spiritual soul, and Ani, is actually dealing with the book, or papyri. So this is dealing with the papyri of oneself. And so I just broke it down. That's my exegesis of it. And so I went, okay, well, this is the Al-Fatiha. So this is an event that would relate to the opening, because those who have no knowledge may not know it, but this particular tool, which is also seen in the form of stars as the Little Dipper. They use this as a symbol of the Little Dipper, but they call this the opening of the mouth ceremony. You see? And when you see that demonstration dealing with the opening of the mouth ceremony, this is an expression of that, in this particular depiction here. I use this depiction, this pictorial reflection as that. And then Al-Baqarah, which is the cow. So you see me put the sacred mother here, the cow, which is a representation of the goddess in ancient Kemet. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the background. We see the reeds, we see the Wajet, the serpent. We see a whole bunch we see Kunam here, the Hierophant, Ma'at down here, holding them up in the form of the beetle, eternal life. We can go in a whole bunch of breakdown just on dealing with that. But nevertheless, you see Ali Imran, the family of Imran, and then you see the expression here in Amarna, in ancient Kemet, Akhenaten. See the rays coming down with the hands on it from the actin disc. So we use that to express that measure, dealing with the family, because this is Akhenaten with his family, his God woman, and then the seeds right here and all that. You see all of that there. So then I use this measure, Anisa, the woman, and I showed the expression here. This is really Het Heru, and then you see the special drawing here. You got also Al Ma'idah, the table, and you see the brothers here preparing the table, so to speak, right? I put that up there. We see also Al Anam, the cattle, and you see all the cattle here. So, I was just doing this, just as an, we'll say, scientific exegesis of some of these symbols in the light of this measure to show you how we bring these items to life that are mentioned in each chapter. And last but not least, the seventh one, Al-Araf, which means the heights. So you can see this is also, you know, buried within a step pyramid, so to speak. You see, a chamber, burial chamber. And then ones don't know, but this is the duat. This serpent is a symbol, you know, of the duat, the starry heavens. You know, when one breaks beyond the barrier of time and space, beyond that, this would represent the same one also, but in the higher state of vibration, you know, working from the plane of soul. You see, this is a plane of soul, this is a plane of things made manifest, where the body is as it is buried in the earth. This is the spirit roaming free. You know what I mean? One has actually unfolded, you know, as one would say, to sit high and look low when it comes to dealing with providence. So, you know, these are just measures that I wanted to bring on the manifest and show you. And I had planned to go through all 114 surahs. You know, I'll pick back up on it again eventually, but this was just an expression of that, to show our family how through metaphysics alone, you can really get a grand drawing off of these signs and symbols that are for conscious mind and men and women of understanding. So Islam. All right. Now, is there any other more, you know, that would like to come forth and give their portion of the understanding as well? You know, your homework, or, you know, whatever drawing you would like to bring to the manifest. Islam.
Islam.
Right. Who is that? Brother Bati Bey. Islam.
Islam. First, I'd like to rise and give our man praise to Allah, honors to the Prophet, honors to our theocratic government, the World Council, flag, seal, emblem of the Divine Constitution, our swift angels, Mupti, citizens alike. Honors to all the Moors had a hand in bringing about this class. And I always like the metaphysical, because it's always thinking beyond, really thinking beyond yourself. And I didn't really have to go too far with it, but I did, because I did use the cat as being one of them. And out of that book, the metaphysical, almost said metaphysical right most, but it's the metaphysical language. It says the 9 realms. The cat represents the 9 realms of the universe, and are manifested in the cat. For both the cat and the grand need mean 9 times, and it means unity, and have the same ancient Egyptian term. The cat has 9 lives, as they say. Cat represents the total harmony of the sense of internal happiness, contentment, and peace. And one thing that I noticed about the cat, well, that I read up on about the cat, is that cats will sit on energy meridians. So wherever you see a cat sitting in your home, there's an energy field, an energy meridian that is going in that particular spot. And normally what they like to do is attribute it to being positive energy. And that's why I see where it says internal happiness, contentment, and peace. And if you notice anything about a cat, that a cat is very independent. So it's not as in what they say in the Buddhist teaching, it's not independent origination, but it still has this air of getting things done, or dealing with itself. It's not afraid to be alone. A cat's not afraid to be alone. The other thing I went is because I have dogs. I use the dogs, and I got a statue of Anubis, or the jackal. That's and I always say him next to this other statue I got of a thinking dude. They call it the thinking statue. And it says that the dog has right sense of direction. It says the divine guide, reliable homing instincts, day or night. And that reminded me of our Moorish American prayer, because even when you're going through something hard, through your days and your nights, your dark times and your bright times, that your honing skills, once you realize who you are, you're never gonna stray too far away from the path. You know what I'm saying? You might get the initial abrupt of it, but you're gonna get right back on the path. You're never gonna go too far from home. And so that's what the homing instincts meant to me. It says very useful in searches. And one thing that when in searches, it brought about the ears class. Because if you think about the ears, that's what you're researching. So when you're researching and you're pulling in knowledge and you're bringing all this stuff back, you are you're going through, and actually it reminds you of the jackal, because it says a jackal is able to take waste and turn it into substance. And see all the things that are going through the languages and not and separating the pictorial glyphs from the cursive and going back to what the true language is. We are all in a sense being an Anubis. We're being that jackal, clearing away the waste and taking it in and taking in what is going to be useful to the nation building. It also says that the dog, or it says dog/jackal. It says guiding souls of the deceased through the realms of Duat, and that's what you just had brought up about the being, well, the serpent. It says the dog, it feasts on Charon and turning it into beneficial nourishment. In other words, able to turn waste into useful food for the soul. And what brought to mind is it says, out of the worst, the wise will find means of good. So, and the other thing that I noticed about the dogs is they have absolute loyalty. That's also what the book says. And if it doesn't matter what you're going through, your dogs will always be excited to see you. You know what I'm saying? And that's a loyalty that that's a loyalty that regardless on, it's hard to come by. And if you notice, this says also the dog is the Sirius dog star, which also refers to Isis, or the great provider. It also goes into the origin of the Egyptian calendar. And the one, and really I see this is the last I say deity that I seen was a praying mantis. And I seen this on the garage door. And the reason why I brought this one in, and I didn't really find anything about the praying mantis in the book, but I brought the praying mantis because it just appeared out of nowhere. You don't see them often, but when you do see them, you always remember them. And when I look at the praying mantis, I looked it up in Egyptian, and it says that it was in the desert set, or neo-pharaonic. So that means it probably came after the Ptolemaic dynasty, when you're thinking about it. But when I'm looking at the praying mantis, I think of control, because they're always still, and they stand still. I say agile because they have wings, so they're able to maneuver. I say they're holding firm, like the Grand Sheik always says, hold that thought. So they're able to, again, go back to control. And I say patience and wisdom with the praying mantis. And they say the word mantis, and it says Greek, but I say Coptic. It says means prophet. And so if you think about the word praying prophet, goes in hand. And that's what I got for my homework. Islam.
And yes, sir, Islam, brother, we give honors to you for that draw, and praise be to Allah. And we like the fact that you brought out, the measures you brought out, brother, from the metaphysical standpoint. And I was listening to you, especially when you dealt with the concept of the 9 and the 9 lives. And, a lot of people don't know that the Roman is ever capitalizing off of a lot of our mythos, so to speak. And, don't be offended by that term, because, myth is always based upon the reality of a thing that actually exists. And our ancestors had a way of telling stories. It's just like our chairman demonstrated with Chick and, the chicken and the eagle concept and so forth and so on. This is a way teachings or stories are told, what they call folklore, and, they are based upon certain measures that are reality. Even the present movie that, you know, that has gained a lot of hype behind our people. When you deal with the Black Panther movie they came up with, they rooted it in the history of, you know, their lineage coming from the goddess Bastet, you know, the panther goddess, so to speak, is what they brought on the manifest. But a lot of people don't know, in the old, even in the old Marvel comic universe, the oldest of the Marvel expression before your Superman and Batman, they actually was the Egyptian deities. You see, a lot of people don't know this. They had the Egyptian, then they had the Greek, and they even had the Indian pantheon. So a lot of time people are putting stories right out there in front of our people in the symbolism, and they don't even know it. You know, and so a lot of this stuff is coming to the surface now because the consciousness has become awakened. So you'll probably even see certain things based on these particular ones. You know, I'm talking about whole characters of Egyptian deities, all the way from Khonsu to Sekhmet. You know, all of these they had in the original unit. The problem is about that, to tell a story like that, one is most definitely gonna have to have our people out there in front doing the role, or nobody don't want to watch it, just like they did with the gods of Egypt. You know, they put a European up there representing Heru, you know, and all saw and all that right there, and the graphics and all that look good, but ain't nobody go watch it because it's like, man, ain't nowhere in the world we finna go over here and watch no movie on Kemet and ain't none of our people in it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot of things that people have to be mindful of, though, you know, and all of these things have an effect on our people. When they see these images, they can retardate, so to speak, the psyche, you know, and make it hard for one to accept what we're trying to give them, because they can only see it through the eyes of the European or through the eyes of Rome, you know. So praise be to Allah. I just wanted to add that in, you know, just for clarity. But we give honors to you, brother, for everything you brought on the manifest, brother Bati Bey. Islamism. Yes, sir. It's a lot more wisdom to be learned. And when you get into this realm here, we unlimited with it. And so our people are going to be able to see Medu for what it is, as opposed to what Rome told us it is. Islam. All right. Is there any other more that would like to come forward and give their portion? Okay, Dr. Marvin Evans Bay. All right, grand man, what have you to say, my brother?
Islam, gratitude for calling me. Yeah, praise and honors have been given. But yes, I am Dr. Marvin Evans Bay, Consul General of the Texas Consulate. And I tell you, this assignment was, it was somewhat overwhelming, I put it. I mean, it seemed simple. He gave 3 things that we needed to do. But once we go into it, like say the, and you know, if I may share my screen. So here. Okay, yeah, this is a Word document that I had on at first. Well, one of the documents I had. So I'm gonna go back to my original thing about this. Okay, this is I began with our Swift Angels and as you guys said, you know, Swift Angel number 188. And I go into the lesson, okay, homework. Islam Muslim, our homework will consist of becoming familiar with method through. And you were saying about browsing the Egyptian hieroglyph metaphysical language by Mustafa Gaddafi for details concerning the meaning pertaining to symbols, your choice. And you know, I thought about this, and I had this book for some time, but only browsed it really, you know, up to this point. And I was kind of glad that we were on it, so I can do more study within it. And as I was, you know, going into it, I'll go down to yeah, the details concerning the meanings change to symbols of the source. And a symbol, by definition, is not what it represents, but what it stands for, what it suggests. A symbol reveals to the mind a reality other than self. Words convey information, symbols evoke understanding. And so I just got started going into it. I was looking at, browsing through this book, the Egyptian hieroglyph, metaphysical language, and it starts out talking about ideograms, ideas, which are images as metaphysical symbols. And then he went in, it is worth repeating the kindness description of how the Egyptians came up with the pictographic hieroglyphic ideogram. And so that's how I began my study. And really, I just, when I was on, talking about kindness, I just wanted to understand like who this character was that he was referring to. Speaks of kindness, that was around AD 205, 270. He was a Roman Neo-Platonist, philosopher born in Egypt. And, the Neo-Platonism is a philosophical and religious system beginning with the work of Aquinas in 45 AD. I mean, that's well after, say, Ptolemy's, their takeover of Egypt. And all these things, I mean, sometimes I go too deep, and I think this is where I got caught up in, talk about Aquinas and how he analyzes and teaches the interpretations of philosophy and theology of Plato, which we know that Plato actually studied, in the Egyptian, along with a lot of the other Socrates and what have you. And they took these speaking, later came back to use them. Well, they were the original. They were the original philosophers Greeks. But we know that there was no really Greek philosophy. It was actually Egyptian philosophy. But that's where he got it from. All of this came forth from the 18th and 19th. Oh, and actually, this Neo-Platonism was actually coined by the German scholars, back from the 18th and 19th century, where they wanted to systematize history into nameable periods. That's where we come with these different periods in our history. And I'm going through this document that I had here, and it speaks not a single classical, and you wanted to us, well, let me fast forward back to documents where you wanted us to speak on, or rather, as we browse through these, we wanted to get an idea how that the Medu was seen prior to the 19th century, Eurocentric, Champollion, Rosetta Stone, and all the rest of these European. And so I would go here just to give a brief understanding of it, where it said not a single classical writer, including Clement of Alexandria in his Grammata book 5, chapter 4, ever indicated that the Egyptian alphabetical form of writing was a cursive or degenerated form of ancient hieroglyphs. And this is something you spoke on often, in our onset of studying the alphabetical language of the Egyptian. And where he also went on to say that yet shamelessly, some scholars invoke the writing of Clement of Alexandria to insist that our Egyptian hieroglyphs sprang from more cursive writing known to us as hieratic, and out of hieratic, there again emerged very rapid script, sometimes called choreo or demotic. Many honest scholars, however, confirm the historical truth that the pictorial writings are a series of images conveying conceptual meanings, not individual sound values, such as the British Egyptologist W.M. Flanders Petrie wrote in his book, The Formation of Alphabetics. He went on to say the question as to whether the alphabetical signs were derived from the more pictorial hieroglyphs or were an independent system has been so little observed by writers on the subject that the matter has been decided more than once without any consideration of the various details involved. The 12th dynasty, 2000, 1700, 1780 BC, before Common Era, about 700 signs were in constant use. There are practically unlimited numbers of these natural symbols, since deciphering the metaphysical ancient Egyptian hieroglyph is beyond Western academia capabilities. They have dubbed it primitive, dubbed it a primitive form of writing. I mean, all of this reflects on how the earlier scholars looked at the alphabetical language and the hieroglyphics. I mean, they didn't, equate them, say one and the same being derived out of the other. The academic Egyptologists cavalierly chose 24 signs out of hundreds of hieroglyphs and called them syllabic determinative. You spoke on this often, how they use these different things and letters or whatever, or simple signs to denote determinative. They made up the rules as they went along, and the end result was chaos. One can easily see the struggle of academia to understand the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic metaphysical text. And I said this, I wanted to read this because, as I began to really read this book again, as you say, scan it, it just went into hieroglyphics, how deep, we can't even begin to even come to a small, minute understanding of this because it's so magnanimous. To go into this hieroglyph of how our ancestors, put forth ideas, concepts and pictures. You know what I'm saying? So, and just one other thing out of this Egyptian hieroglyphic metaphysical language, the soundness of the three rows of each Egyptian hieroglyph image. The hieroglyphics of Hieropolo, and actually, Dr. Gadala actually goes and use some of the reflections of Hieropolo. Is the only, the hieroglyphics of Hieropolo is the only true hieroglyphic piece preserved from classical antiquity. It consists of two books, one containing 7 chapters and the other 119, each dealing with one particular hieroglyph. In each chapter. And it speaks how the hieroglyphs, on the first dealt with literally by imitation an object represents itself, and figurative, an object stands for one of its qualities. Allegorical as an object linked, enigmatic comes to conceptual processes. It just goes on to show just how in depth these hieroglyphics really is. To go back to some things I have brought on, and talking about using Gardner's list to point out symbols you recognize by observing nature, all life forms around you, given a metaphysical. Well, there's not too much of nature around me, other than say the sun, the moon, the stars, and I just wrote this in as you mentioned about the Quran. I speaks on the moon. The Egyptians represents the month by a moon, by a palm tree. Hebrew, the name of the month, that of the moon form a single word. As the copy, moon month. It just just a brief, a brief. Because every time I walk out that my apartment and I look up, I get this full moon. I can see it clearly. It just calls my mind to reflect and to think about moon and how it connects, how it affects the actual Earth. You know what I mean? And the say the tides and what have you. I mean, our ancestors went into all of this. They studied everything. You know what I mean? I wanted to go into the beetle. I couldn't. I didn't have the time. To get to that scarab beetle. How he talks about how, you know, I mean, they're actually they reproduce without a female. I mean, and I'm trying to think. There's no female beetles, you know, and how they actually embed their eggs into say that manure. You know what I mean? They actually form a circle. I mean, which is another significance of this. It's whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, that's a powerful measure right there.
yes, sir.
And you couldn't have brought it forth in a better way, brother.
Yes, sir.
You know, because that fall right in line with everything that we've been saying, like you said. And as you continue to read, pardon self, Moors. As you continue to read the brother Mustafa Gedala's works, you will be able to see, you know, a little better the way we demonstrate. And I encourage our Moors kin to get all the works that the brother have that you are able to get. I got the ones mainly dealing with the language, the Egyptian mystics, seekers of the word, you know, the Egyptian cosmology, you know, all of those particular measures. I actually had the cosmology measure in PDF form. They got a couple of them in PDF form, but also other sources out there to draw from outside of even his particular works is the good brother Muta Ashby. And the reason why I would say Muta Ashby, because he got a large library of certain things as well. He got a lot of metaphysical breakdowns. We draw from some of it when we're dealing with the KEMET and Pa'ashatat that we put together. But also, that brother also speaks highly of the prophet in some of his material, you know, in his breakdowns as well. So, you know, now that we know what we're looking at and how to draw certain things, we know how to do what we do. Even though those brothers too, we also caution you that, you know, when they draw their exegesis, they were drawing based upon what they had came across in the translation of the European, but they still put an Asiatic interpretation on it. You know, that's why we honor more the interpretation that they had than the way that they were dealing with a particular European's version of it. So we know that was an attempt for one to give us a drawing from ourselves. So we give honors to that brother. But I like the fact that he would use in some of his works the teachings of the prophet in the Circle 7, you know, in certain areas. Also the book Medu by the brother Ra'u Nefer Amen. You know, he got a bunch of volumes. And if you looked at it, you wonder why in his books, I got like volume 1 and 2 up here. I never really brought the other ones. But those particular ones, he's talking about the Kemetic tree of life. But you don't see him in there talking about no hieroglyphics in the form of Medu. He's talking about the metaphysics of it. And Brother Body Bay, that's one of his main sources. But I had that one for years. And I like his works because he actually go into the history of the ancient Canaanites and everything. And he talk about the Hyksos. So, you know, books like that there, you know, I can honor, you know, when it comes to some of the authors that we have that produce certain measures, but certain authors that we have that like to uplift E. Wallace Budge and, you know, all this here, which is some of the modern Egyptologists, is what they doing. Some of our people that's listening to these people, like some of the same people that I end up getting trying to come at me, they pushing E. Wallace Budge demonstration. You know, unlike them other brothers, You know, and the thing is, for some reason, every Eurocentric chematologist that look like us feel a need to attack, you know, Islam. They feel a need to attack anything that has to do with our Afrocentric spirituality, you know, because Rome didn't say so. This is one of the reasons why I had the Egyptian Book of the Dead by Wallace Budge, and I gave it away. Years ago, I had it, like, you know, I'm talking about what, right at 30 years, you know, when you go into it, I had that book, and it was, you know, a thick book, you know. Matter of fact, I got a small copy I have over here now on that same demonstration. But I mean, it ain't worth a grain of salt to me, so to speak. It's just, you know, what he said, you know, he came up with. And so by him calling the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that right there tell me everything I need to know. It's the book of Pert M. Heru, coming forth by the day or coming forth by the light. That's the proper measure. And so those are the type of things that we plan on correcting along the way, you know, as we begin to go into measures. And so that's why for a long time, you know, you would have Moore's asking, and it would be like, Moore, you know, is there any books you suggest us to read? You know, and I wouldn't really go too much into the drawing, because first and foremost, we didn't want the Moors to get took off from dealing with understanding the basics of Moorish science. You know, that's the main thing until we became rooted in that. But when the lessons begin to unfold and you seen the chairman begin to bring, you know, the Kemetic unfoldments to the manifest, and we start bringing drawings to the manifest, now, okay, we can give our people some ground because they have it right here in the lesson. And now we finna give you the Moorish perspectives of what Kemet is, as opposed to the European perspective. You know, and the Grand Secretary of the State demonstrated that perfectly in the beginning of this video. You know, and so there were many that have come forth here in the government talking about they claim to teach Kemet, but the difference between them and us is that we will be able to teach in this demonstration and bring it forth as the prophet expressed his lesson, where they was coming forth trying to give us the European interpretation, you know, and they mastery over the European subject, you know, in relation to dealing with Kemet. And that was the difference, you know, between what we call, you know, the Moorish perspectives and the European perspectives. So that's the drawing right there. It's just like even dealing with the concept of al-Islam. You know, al-Islam, the way the Arabs demonstrated, ain't al-Islam the way the Moors demonstrated, because the Moors come through the path of Tasawwuf. You know, West Africa, Northwest Africa, all that was pretty much dominated by Sufi doctrine. And we already proved to the people that that doctrine comes from a native-born Egyptian, you know, Dul-Nun, who actually was one of the first also to tap into dealing with the hieroglyphics before Champollion. So all those Sufi schools that went across North Africa, which is really tracing themselves back to Tehuti and Kemet, you know, you understand why in the doctrine of Sufism, they talk about, you know, unity between God and man. You don't hear them talking like that in Orthodox Islam. In fact, you might get your head cut off if you run up on a fanatic. You know, you got to watch it. And so, yeah, when you deal with that, even Mustafa Gadala shows you the difference between one trying to limit Tasawwuf or Sufism to even dealing with the Islamic relation of the system. No, he tell you this is straight Egyptian mystic science. You see? That's what you really talking about. This is what we talk about when we speak of, you know, even the precursor, when we go into dealing with what we call the seekers of the truth that Muhammad himself traveled with before he received his revelation, or he was initiated by the angel Jibril into the ancient Kemetic mystery system, taking him through them 7 degrees of self-mastery. You know, before that, he was with the Sabi'un Hunafa. The chairman touched on this in the Book of Fire. You know, Sabi'un Hunafa deal with the Sabians. There's a whole surah dedicated to the Sabians, Surah 34. You see, Ayat 34, Al Sabah, which is the first son of Cush, Seba, often spelled S-A-B-I or S-A-B-A, S-A-B-I, or sometimes S-E-B-A. You know, but these are the Sabians. And that's what we go up into, also dealing with what we call the Sebagatila that we was talking about last night on our actual call, the Sabik, the Sabak. You know, this is where we are being immersed into the attributes of the great God Allah. You know, the teachings of the people of Sabah are the Sabians. You know, they often refer to our people and call them star worshipers and all types of stuff. And it was because they honored the star, the North Star, the same star that the scimitar is rotating around in the heavens. You know, so a lot of the teachings that Muhammad have as far as his traditions, he actually got those traditions from the Sabians and he implemented them, you know, into certain things. These things are not often mentioned by detail in the Quran itself, but they are actually mentioned in the Hadiths. A lot of that stuff that's in the Hadiths actually come from the Sabians, some of it. You know, and the Sabians didn't pray 5 times a day, they prayed 7 times a day. Because the number Sabah is also a relation to the word Saba. Saba means 7. You see, and you go into ancient Kemet, you know, the one that is known as the Seba, because that's actually mentioned in the Kemetic teaching, is known as the instructor. So it's no strange measure when you see all these connections and they tell you that the descendants of Sabi, you know, are descendants of Tehudi. You see, it all makes sense. You know, so we're able to make all these connections because we did the research, but everything comes from Kemet. So we can say our Moorish school of thought is Kemetic, is rooted in ancient Kemet. You see, whereas the Arab deal with 4 schools of thought, Hanabali, Hanafi, Maliki, and Shafi, the Sabian school of thought is our school of thought. And it mentions us in the Grand Quran. We didn't make it up, because he tell you those who believe in the way, in the teachings of the Sabians. And then it mentioned the Muslims and Christians who believe in Allah in the last day, all should have their reward in their deeds. So you don't have to be rooted in the concept of a Arabian version of Islam for Allah to accept you in divinity, because your pathway is that of the Sabiq, the Sebugatala, being immersed in the divine wisdom, and that's your ancestors' pathway, not the Arabized pathway. And we have to make that emphasis to our family so ones don't get it twisted. You know, so when we say we ain't following the Arabized version of Islam, that's not making an attack on the teaching of Islam. And we just letting you know the difference between Islamism and what they talking about. And we know for a fact the Prophet demonstrated this way, because even when we go into that one that was going against our Prophet, Sadi Majid, pardon himself, who was trying to push Orthodox Islam, one of the things he had in his fatwa that he took over there to the Egyptians and all the different sheiks around, you know, the world at that time, because he sent it to everybody. He said Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught that the Islam, you know, that the Arabs was teaching wasn't the right Islam. So that lets you know the Prophet wasn't teaching the Arabized Islam right there, because that's one of the charges he tried to bring against the Prophet. And also, he said that the Islam that the Arabs brought was shot through with hocus pocus. That's what he said he heard the Prophet say while he was in a meeting listening to him. So we know the Prophet wasn't for pushing the Arabized brand, a version of Islam. And we see that he came back as an Egyptian adept. So we can see how the Prophet was most definitely in more connection with the, again, Sabian tradition. And again, these are the people that Muhammad was moving with before he got his revelation, the Sabi Hunafa, which they translate as basically seekers of the truth. But that's a whole nother measure. So I wanted to bring that up, family, so that our people know exactly where our lineage of teaching derived from when we talk about Moorish science. You know, it is mystic. You know, it is more of the spiritual. It has to do more with the esoteric reality of being able to identify with DT. And the chairman touched on that in the Book of Fire. When he talk about the adept deification of man, he tell you the amount of years one had to study exoteric and the amount of years one had to study esoteric. So we have to have all this knowledge in mind when we talk about dealing with the metaphysics of the language and understanding where we come from and having a clear conception of our version of Islam and being careful not to get caught up in somebody else's version. So Islam, family, I just wanted to add that because the ethers put it in my spirit at the moment. Somebody needed to hear. So at this particular time, is there any other more that would like to come forward and give their expression or their portion in regards to dealing with some homework, you know, or if you just have some input that you would like to add to this measure, you know, before we go to our officials? Islam? We see that we have on here Brother Lewis Potter Bay, Swift Angel, the brother Golden Asher Smith Bay, Myers Bay. You know, if the brother's there, you know, we got the brother Simpson Bay. I mean, if anybody has some input before we go to the officials, you can come forward, fam. All right, going once. Going twice. All right, we thrice blessed then. So what we're going to do at this particular time, we're going to go back to Act 1. And we're going to call our Grand National Secretary of the State back to the manifest. We know the God man is most definitely probably on a mission because we know he get to moving early. But we give honors to our Grand National Chairman, happy manifestation day for another journey around that sun. Praise be to Allah. And all right, Grand National Secretary of the State, Islamism.
Islam Moorish Ken. Having already risen, giving praise and honor where due, especially giving honor to our Georgia consulate for providing the forum, Act 1, our Moorish Ken, and also to our host instructor, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shedu Amenti El Mohedjik Shepsuel, for grand class. It's been a grand measures, especially coming from our Moorish kin, and also much gratitude to you, Dr. Shahid, for bringing forth additional clarity. That demonstration where you were dealing with the breakdown of the surahs and the pictorial, that was so on point. It just took us back to ancient times, and also the clarity in reference to our ancestors coming through the Sabian line, not taking anything away from Arabia, but just giving clarity so we have a good understanding as far as our history and our ancestors are concerned. Looking forward to just going even further. Definitely have to go back and deal with the video from this class and last class, because it was very profound what our Moorish kin brought forth, and also how you broke down not only dealing with the Meroitic script coming from the ears logo, which was very key. And it's helping, I know for me, and I know for my Moorish kin, it's helping to now readily identify and become more familiar with these symbols, you know, which are magnanimous as far as what our ancestors brought forth. So can't wait to get to the dictionary that we're going to bring forth, you know, for our Moorish kin. And it's just a blessing to be able to see the divinity and what our ancestors brought and what the prophet brought to us. And all of it is one. So gratitude more for calling me forth. Much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin. Grand class, gratitude.
Gratitude and Islamism, Grand National Secretary of the State. We give honors to you, Goddess and Queen, for that drawing. And yeah, we definitely getting ready to go there. You know, so this gonna be a powerful measure. And as we continue to unfold, you know, our Moorish kin, we gonna give you everything that it is that the prophet told us to give our people, the truth. And so gratitude to the tribe of endurance for bringing the truth. And you know, the book of fire is definitely gonna be a part and partial, you know, of the conduit, so to speak, that we are utilizing when it comes to a lot of that definition and so forth and so on. The chairman is giving many grand definitions and a lot of the commentaries. You know, the commentaries itself, you know, is a whole nother book yet to be printed. I always mess with the chairman throughout the years and say, well, we're gonna go ahead and, you know, put these commentaries out here on the manifest, and, you know, we're gonna demonstrate all of this in time, you know, because we have definitions that are always being given. That's one of the things we want to give honors to our Moorish kin. So we done read European metaphysical dictionaries, different symbolic dictionaries, but now they're gonna get it from the Moors. So Islam, Grand National Secretary of the State. All right, we want to call forth our next official, our beloved and most illustrious National Grand Sheikh, Dr. Serapis Amin Rael. Islam, you there, Sheikh? I see he up there. Give him a chance to get in here. Just wait a second. There you go.
How they say it? Close as a thought?
That's the one he brought.
Islam.
Islam.
We want to give a lot of praise as we ride. And the high honors to his love, thought, prophet, number 2 Ali, and everything he brought and everyone he taught. We give honors to this class this afternoon, and the fact that some very serious students are online. One thing I grabbed a hold of was that it was taking me back, and I was looking at the thieves that were on set, and it was taking things that belonged to us, and our language was distorted and mangled and twisted up, where it took us at least 47 generations to come back. And we just now coming back. And it is your mission, God, man, to wake up the sleeping giant. To get a sleeping giant, that which he had to rule the heavens and the stars and the galaxies of the universe. And the fact that you have access to the meta-net, or the language that was spoken to, is a God thing, and it's no accident. And it seems to me that when we grasp the significance of this language and we're able to reproduce it or get it back in our original form, will be a day, what do they say, jubilation, because we have been somewhat honored to be able to be the ones to bring our language back to us as a people. Talking about the 47 centuries that it took to, and it may be more than that, to take us out of our point. They got us demonstrating somebody else's language. And so there's nothing, what you say, imaginary or hard as to what she could bring it forth, because it is something that has been spoken of by the great one. As a matter of fact, we have a class about that now. And the fact that one's got to be able to hear the angel's voice in silence. And the angel's voice is being spoken of right now. It's been spoken of through the brothers on this and sisters on this line. And one said, have you did your homework? But who was that talking? Did you do the lesson? Who was that asking the question? So there's just a lot of episodes that's going on with this great reawakening that I'm just hopeful that we will be able to put it in the book form that you talk about and be able to have it in our shell and say, well, the return of the ancient ones, if you will. She put this demonstration down in light form when you talk about, because everybody want to grab a hold of the ancient ones, but I don't think they really know where it's at. And right here on this conference call here is where they find themselves. One asked a long time ago, have you lost your mind? Yes, at 1 hour, we was crazy in the Metaphysical, but now we're being led back the right way. And so everyone that's on this class now, wow, there's an ad for real, because you carry yourself in a higher realm of thought and everything that the prophet taught, and everyone that the prophet taught, and the ones that the prophet is teaching. Praise the Lord, Mo. Thank you.
Islamism and gratitude, Sheikh, for that grand measure brought forth from our father's treasures and a powerful drawing that is. And one thing for sure, we most definitely have given our Moorish kin the tools, to be used and utilized in order for us to complete this task. And so that's what we have given, the skill set now, so that our Moorish kin can not only do a lifelong research and study, but we can teach to our people. And we just had to bring forth that methodology so that we can get this to our Moorish kin without tarrying, too long in one area, and so we've most definitely come a long way. In fact, I'm gonna give a prime example, right here on something that's often looked over. We're gonna put a Moorish perspectives on this demonstration. This was one of the tools that we gave in Quran.com, where ones can actually become even more proficient, in this, because we're gonna have our own Moorish transliteration of the Grand Quran as well, in due time. But there's something that was pointed out here, if you pay attention. For example, in this Arabic, right, it speaks of what this is word right here, this is huwa, right, which means he, huwa, right? Huwa. You see? This is alladhi, right? Alladhi. You see? And this is let me see, kalak. You see? Create, which deals with creator, right? And then when you just keep going through here, you can see how we break this demonstration. Now it's right here for us. But what it's saying, if we were to go through it, some of these words one can identify with if they are familiar with it. It speaks of Mafi al-Ard, Kamia. It says Thuma, Asamawati, Ina, La Samawat, which deals with the heavens, and so forth and so on. He fashioned them. But going down here in the end, the most important part of all of this stuff that's being said here, right, is this last statement. He, right? And it says in every, right, of every, it says, well, actually it comes here. He has knowledge of the heavens and the earth. Kuli Shayin Alim. And we use that word olam when we was talking about them figures around our symbol, that we have for the ears. But the word olam and ilm and ilimun dealing with all knowing. And basically it's kuli shayin, shayin katir, alim, right? Kuli shayin alim, all knowing, right? And so when we go into that special aspect, notice it say he is one who created everything in earth for you. Then he turned towards the heaven. Remember, we're showing you Samawati, forming it into 7 heavens. You see that? Forming it into 7 heavens. It says, and has perfect knowledge of all things. Perfect knowledge of all things. Now reflect upon chapter 11 in our Moorish Holy Quran. When we talk about, all forms being the thought of the great God Allah made manifest. This is according to his knowledge. And coming back down here, when he began to create, man, he announced this to the angels. And we ain't got to go through all the Arabic there, but listen to what it says. Remember when your Lord said to the angels, I'm going to place a successive human of authority on the earth. And when he said that, he was talking about the Khalifa. You see, the Khalifa is who he was referring to, or we call him vicegerent. You see? You see, right there. And so that particular one given authority on earth, but it said that the angels ask Allah, will you place in it someone who will spread corruption and shed blood while we glorify your praises and proclaim your holiness? And Allah responded to them, I know what you know not. You see what I'm saying? I know what you know not. You see? A'lamu. I know. You see what I'm saying? I know what you know not. You see? Man. La. Right? And then tak. Right? Lamun. You see what I'm saying? Well, I don't talk like no Arab, but y'all see that I'm on point. So what I'm saying is, he's saying, I know what you don't know, what you don't know, right? This is what he told the angels when he had told them to prostrate before the man, right? And we tell family all the time, he wasn't telling them to do this to bow down to the man, but he had placed his spirit in man. So to disobey that command would be disobeying, prostrating to the great God. He had told them, bow down to me, because I had placed myself in this, I'm placing myself in this man, basically. This is what I'm getting ready to do. The angels obeyed, because that's the nature of the angel. Iblis say he ain't doing it. Now, when they asked him this question, this is what he said to him, right? It said he taught Adam the names of all things, and he presented them to the angels and said, tell me the names of these if what you say is true. Because remember, they asked him, you gonna put somebody there that's gonna shed blood and make mischief on the earth? You know what I mean? He telling them, I know what you don't know. So look at what I taught him. I have taught him the names of all things. Now, in certain translation, it says he was taught the nature of all things. So when you look at the nature of all things, we understand the word nature is connected to the word netter. You see in ancient Kemet, he has taught man the nature of the vibration of the netter within creation. He taught us to read the book of creation. So it is our nature. Man is the one that gave the name to all of these things that we now can see that have been written in forms of Medu. How did he do that unless that he had to listen to the silent voice of God that spoke within? So God was basically telling the angels, if you think what you're saying true, then do you have the knowledge of these things? Because this man does. It was also man that was given the amana. Amana is also connected to the word alamin, dealing with knowing, the knowledge, a counsel of knowing, and man, it's just powerful measures. So it's already in us is what I'm getting at. From the time before we was even created, it was already in us. You see what I'm saying? But guess what they replied? They replied, glory be to you, we have no knowledge except what you have taught us. You are truly all-knowing and all-wise. And that's the nature of an angel. An angel is always humble enough, to admit the greatness, the supreme reality, God himself. You see, and they didn't know disobedience too. That's why angels don't disobey. Cherubims and seraphims, are jinns and so forth and so on. They have the ability to choose. And Iblis was amongst them. That mind of Lucifer and the likes was amongst, the beings, because one was given the ability to be in charge and in ranks, being able to control something. This is how he was able to mislead, because these ones were following and obeying the fact that he was put in place by the supreme reality. So surely he wouldn't disobey. All they know, we're going to hear disobey what the Most High say. So if he said it, then surely the Most High said it. And so that's why a few of them, ended up going astray, because they were only following the command of following, the one that had been placed in, power of leadership, so to speak, only not knowing that this one, had pretty much wanted to exalt his throne above the stars of God. So that's a lesson to learn as well. Iblis thought he knew what Allah, he knew more than what Allah knew, basically. So it's a whole bunch of measures found. We just wanted to bring that out here, but man was taught the nature of all things. And so we have the nature, the knowledge of the nature of all things within us. So that's the essence. And that's how you understand, what's going on by reading the book of creation, listening to the silent voice that speaks within. We can only do that by going in the realm of third heaven in our thoughts. So Islam, I'm gonna stop right there. That was just one to grow on, to add to our Moorish kin's arsenal, so to speak, and keep it Moorish. And so we just say gratitude, Moors, and we love you with love and divinity. And we definitely look forward to seeing you on our Sunday school class tonight. And we're going to pass it on to our sister Curta Bay, so she can close us out. Islamism.
Islam, Islam, Islam. January 15, 1929, a warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feeling toward the government or the prophet or violates the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways by the order of Prophet Noble Jew Ali. A holy covenant of the Asiatic nation. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Islam, Islam, Islam. This meeting is officially adjourned according to Act 2. Go in peace, Moors. Great class. Islam.
Thank you.
Islamism.
Great class.
Great
Gratitude,
class, family.
Morris
Great
Ken.
class. Great
Gratitude, Dr.
Morris.
Shaheed.
Gratitude.
Gratitude, Aquan. Peace and love,
Gratitude.
Morris.
Love you,
Happy
family.
birthday, champ.
Ooh-wee.
Peace and love.
Peace and
We
love.
love you, boys.
Love y'all.
Thank you.
Love y'all too.
Peace.
Islam. Peace.
See you more on Sunday school class tonight. Islam.
Yes.
Yeah,
Praise
Islam.
Allah.
Get Sunday school.
Islam.